Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here, because today we're going to unpack a perspective that might completely upend the way you look at your daily routine, your career, and honestly, your life goals. We're looking at a deeply philosophical and radical text written in 2021 by the author Xu Feng. And the premise here is incredibly striking. What if everything we've been taught about achievement, about striving, and about winning is actually completely backwards? In a world that constantly tells us to hustle harder and achieve more, this text offers a sharp, almost jarring pivot. It challenges the very foundation of ambition itself. Just let the weight of this massive question linger for a second. Is success a trap? I know, it feels totally counterintuitive, right? I mean, from the moment we're born, society basically wires us to climb the ladder, to get the better grade, to secure that promotion, to finally make it. We build our entire identities around our successes and our failures. But Xu Feng's text dares to ask if this deeply ingrained hustle culture is actually a snare we've willingly stepped right into. It's a huge, provocative question, and it's really the beating heart of the philosophy we're exploring today.
Section 1. The illusion of success and taking a view from another world.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the author's critique of our modern burnout, we first kind of need to step outside of it. The text introduces us to what's called the thousand-year world. Basically, Xu Feng writes from the perspective of an observer from this realm. And in this hypothetical space, the very concepts of success and failure simply do not exist. There's no dictionary entry for winning. There's absolutely zero anxiety about losing. Instead, the people there are described merely as enjoyers of life from beginning to end. Imagine that for a second, a life completely stripped of the pressure to achieve. By setting up this stark contrast, the text forces us to realize that our obsession with success isn't some universal law of the cosmos. It's a specific and maybe flawed human invention.
Moving right along to Section 2, Nature versus Human Ambition and the Natural Unfolding.
And this brilliantly illustrates the divide the author is talking about. When you look at heaven, plants, animals, the rest of nature, there is never any talk of success. Everything simply unfolds and retracts naturally. An oak tree doesn't stress out about being the most successful oak tree in the forest. A bird definitely doesn't have a 5-year plan. They just exist. But then, you look at the human realm. According to the author, it's only here, among us humans, that we find this heavy, obsessive burden of success and failure. We're kind of the anomaly in the natural order, carrying this weight that the rest of the universe simply ignores.
Which brings us to Section 3, the inventor of the trap, and the true cost of ambition. So I want you to neutrally consider the author's observation here about the real-world results of this constant hustle. Xu Feng asserts that if you really look closely at society, you'll find a pretty dark irony. The text claims that the people who most thoroughly mess up their lives are actually the ones who are intensely pursuing success. It even goes so far as to suggest that populations locked in prisons, or people struggling in what the author calls a boundless sea of suffering, are fundamentally composed of lives that were desperately chasing success. The argument is that this win-at-all-costs drive is exactly what pushes people into ruin and despair.
And that leads right to the text's most radical, uncompromising conclusion. Success is a trap invented by the devil. Now, whether you read the devil as a literal spiritual entity or just as a metaphor for destructive societal forces, the impartial takeaway from Xu Feng's philosophy is exactly the same. This relentless, exhausting drive is not our true human nature. It's a manufactured snare, a literal trap designed to separate us from the natural joy of existence.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it turns the mirror back on us and the architects of our society. The author urges everyone to carefully observe human society. Who are the people constantly driving us to strive for more? And, more importantly, how do those who dedicate their entire lives to aspiring for success actually end up? Are the relentless corporate structures and our own inner ambitions actually setting us up for a life that is fundamentally messed up? The text insists that the answer is yes. To really emphasize how absurd this pursuit is, Xu Feng uses this profound, ancient metaphor. The text asks, what is success? Contending for the space of a snail's antler or contending for a flash of light, is that success? Think about how fierce and exhausting our daily competitions are. The stress we feel over a promotion or a social media status. From the perspective of that thousand-year world we talked about, fighting over these things is as petty and meaningless as two microscopic beings fighting over the tiny space on a snail's antler. It's just a flash of light, over in an instant.
Let's pivot slightly to Section 4, the historical illusion and the fate of empires.
The author brings up Qin Shi Huang, the legendary first emperor of a unified China. Now, if anyone achieved supreme, undeniable, world-conquering success, it was him, right? He built empires, he commanded vast armies, he literally shaped history. He's kind of the ultimate historical test case for ambition. So the text asks a really simple question. Did he actually succeed?
To answer that, the author quotes this hauntingly beautiful, tragic poetry. Let's just slow down here and let these words sit with you for a moment. Broken walls where foxes sleep, deserted platforms where rabbits walk, all were places of singing and dancing in those days. The grand palaces of ambition are now just mist and withering grass. The great battlefields where thousands fought and died for the glory of success, they're now just covered in cold dew and yellow flowers.
So, who succeeded? Pause and really think about that. When the music finally stops, when centuries pass, and all that remains of the most powerful empires are foxes sleeping in the ruins and rabbits walking on deserted platforms, who actually won the battle for success? The text points out this profound historical illusion. Time eventually erases all human ambition, returning everything to the earth. The ultimate victor isn't the emperor. It's just the quiet, unfolding nature that reclaims the stones.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our modern daily life. Section 5, Reclaiming the Moonlight and the True Cost.
Here is the everyday tragedy presented in the text. You work incredibly hard. You achieve your goals, but you've earned a lot of money and you've never had time to appreciate the moonlight. The author asks directly, have you succeeded? Do you call that success? It's a really piercing observation. We trade the simple, profound, freely available beauty of the natural world, like the moonlight, for bank balances and job titles. We become so obsessed with this artificial trap that we literally ignore the natural world unfolding right above our heads.
So the crucial point is the author's stark, final vision of our ambitious society. Shuofeng writes, I cannot see a single successful person. I only see lives crushed by success, their faces distorted and souls shattered. Without the moonlight, without that natural rhythm of life, the pursuit doesn't elevate us, it grinds us down. The relentless pressure distorts who we're meant to be, leaving us exhausted and shattered on the inside.
And this visually lays out the core paradigm shift of the entire explainer. We're presented with two totally opposing paths. On one side, you have the path society pushes us toward, the pursuit of success. Sure, it promises money and ambition, but according to Shuofeng, it ultimately leads to crushed lives and a frantic battle on a snail's antler. But on the other side, the alternative, becoming enjoyers of life. This means aligning with the natural unfolding of the universe, stepping completely out of the trap and actually having the time and the peace of mind to appreciate the moonlight.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer, and I want to leave you with this one final, deeply personal question. As you close out of this, as you return to your emails, your schedules, and your ambitions, ask yourself, are you chasing success, or are you enjoying the moonlight? It's a question that challenges the very foundation of how we choose to spend our limited time in this world. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this fascinating text. I really hope it gives you something profound to think about tonight, perhaps while you're looking up at the sky.